Today on Off the Hinges, relax, pour yourself a drink, and unwind from your week as I answer your questions and share stories about this week's trade. I'm joined by a special guest, and I have my whiskey in hand. I'm so glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's slide into the vault. Y'all are in for it today. And before I cheers to you, cheers to my father's firstborn, the baby girl who made my dad a dad. That's important as a dad of daughters, man. Like this
Big
is an
stuff.
honor. This is an honor for me. Even if she was the spawn of a lot of trouble that I received the flack for in our formative years. We don't have to get into that. We unearthed it a little bit with my middle sister last
Honesty.
time.
Honesty, Josh.
Honesty. Be honest. Honesty is the best policy. But my sister, I'm so excited for you guys to hear her stories and her expertise. She's older than me, and I'm north of 40. So she has a couple of years. I ain't saying she old, but she ain't young. She ain't no spring chick. I didn't say you
Okay.
weren't a chick. I said you're not a spring chick. Come on. And you know
Okay.
what? You know what? Let me not dig myself into a living grave. Cheers to
Edit.
all of you. Welcome to the
Part will
weekend.
edit.
We're not editing any of this. Um, Welcome back to Off the Hinges. As I take a sip, introduce yourself, please, if you would be so gracious to our.
I'm Jeanette. I'm Jeanette, Josh's oldest sister.
She ain't old. She's just the
Nope.
oldest.
Nope.
That's right.
Relative. It's relative.
Yeah, age is relative.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Man, this is exciting. So we are diving into honesty. And it was deliberate. We've talked about these things. And I'll be blunt. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. She goes, man, you know a lot of people. Why are you picking me to talk and jaw jack about honesty? I said, because first of all, I respect you, and this is a cool space to talk with family, people I trust and know the way that they think about things and know their heart. But also, because she is older than me, my entire life, I literally have had her as an example, as a model of integrity and character and honesty. And I've watched her as not just my oldest sister, not just someone who really our family has been close. Me and my two sisters, it's a blessing. We're all three very close together. We're all three individuals. We have our own ways, but we're very tight. We share the same core beliefs. We're cut from the same proverbial cloth. And it's we're just really tightly knit together and bonded as people outside of just being family. So it runs deep, it runs thick. But then on top of that, just watching her as a wife, watching her as a mother, um, and the grace that she balances that with, and the character that she does that with, and very steadfast in the things that she does. And it's a joy to honor her. So, man, I know y'all know this, but you ain't getting no one better than her to talk about honesty because there's a lot of just practical truths that you don't want someone highfalutin. You want someone who's real, and that's what you're getting today. And we're going to be a little wild because it is off the hinges. And this is my sis. This is fam. So you know, we're gonna go a little crazy. You're gonna be all right though. So she's used to these first three questions because this isn't the first time we've conversed on life and stuff and things. But straight out the gates, what are you thankful for this week?
Um, Today, the 4 a.m. wake ups and
Boom.
hitting the gym with Maddox at 5 a.m. That's like our almost every day. But grateful for that. And especially with him in this season. It's pretty sweet time.
Yeah. So Maddox is her oldest son.
Hmm.
Man, that dude. Maybe I'm gonna have that dude on one for an episode.
I told him that. I'm like, you should be on here, not me.
He would blow y'all's minds. That kid is, oh my goodness,
He's
in the
something
best of
special.
ways. He is, but Maddox is a rock star. He's such a cool
Hmm.
dude. Little Mo.
Yes.
Yeah, so he gets up at the booty crack of dawn and gets to the gym. So all y'all making excuses for life, being late,
None.
get out of here. You know
Cut it
what?
out.
He can miss all of us with that trash. If her son is getting up at 4 a.m. and going to the gym, putting Jocko to shame, putting Goggins to shame, those punks, hey, y'all need to step in line with Maddox because that boy could lead you somewhere. That's a fact, Jack. So that's Maddox. That's who that boy is. Yeah.
Facts.
I'm thankful for
Yep.
today too. That's good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. What have you been learning lately?
Back to medics. Wrestling.
All
Wrestling
right.
is a whole big world that I did not know a whole lot about. Um, yeah. So different styles, and like right now he's learning Greco, which is like all upper body, like grappling and throws and holds, and
Mhm.
no leg attacks. That's what I learned this week.
Very cool. All
Yeah.
right. Rock on. There you go. So for all of you Greco-Roman wrestlers, you could have a chat with Jeanette and she'd probably go blow for blow with you.
I
But
don't
no
know.
leg locks, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a wrestler, but there you have it.
No takedowns.
No take.
No leg
No take.
attacks.
All right, then. I'm learning something new. All right.
Hmm.
Rock on. So, how do you hope to grow and transform as you find time for rest and reflection heading into this weekend?
Um, Creating margin for rest. This is something that I'm working on growing in and just being a little more intentional with. It's easy for me to keep going, and there's always a lot going on. But just creating that space for quiet and rest.
Yeah, it ain't easy.
It's not,
And I mean,
not,
so yeah, you can. Maybe this segues nicely into the next one because you can. I'm going to ask you what your story is, and I would imagine you'll share a little bit about your family. But I mean, she's got 3 kids, and they are fantastic. But they are just as kids should be, so full of energy. Maddox, Liam, McKenna, little Gracie. Oh my God, so spunky, so zestful. I mean,
mm-hmm.
it is, dude. It is nonstop. It's a whole
It
nother
is.
level in the best of ways.
It is
So to be a
that.
parent, I mean, I can just speak at some scale with my kids. To be a parent of kids like what our kids are, it's such a blessing. But you are like tapping out at the end of the day. You're like, dude, the old the old gray mare ain't what she used to be, man. Like, come on. So they're fantastic, but yeah, I will just
They're
say that
busy. They're busy for sure. Yeah.
that's true. So
Yeah.
give us some of your backdrop, however you want to write this script. What's your story?
My story. You know my story. It's so
Yeah,
bizarre to say it to you.
give the people what they need. Help
Um,
us out.
so my story also includes Josh's story. Growing up, I feel like family was everything. And that is my story for as long as my story has been. It came first over everything. And we were incredibly blessed, fortunate to grow up in a home where our parents just loved each other truly and loved us unconditionally. Um, and they really poured everything into our family, into um, teaching us and modeling for us um, just character and what family should be, and so many of the things that I take as a given that just aren't really a given to a lot of people. So they really were intentional, mom and dad both were, just to develop us like mind, body, and spirit. And I think that truly just shaped more of me than really any other aspect of my life. And so many of those things that like I carry today as values and things that like we talk about in our home and that you do in your home just are a result of a mom who was really present and always pouring into us, and a dad who was our person, like he just, what a gift he was. And it was always the joke, like, who's your favorite? Who's your favorite? And how many times did he say to us, like, if I'm doing my job right as a dad, each of you are going to be convinced, like, you can't be talked out of it that you're my favorite. And like, he accomplished that. And like, having 3 kids now, man, that's just incredible to me. Um, just to love unconditionally and to be present and to be, um, just be someone that like your kids can look at you and be like, yep, that's my person. Like he's there for me no matter what. Um, so just summed up kind of in a nutshell without a lot of more details, like that is the beginning of my story. And I was born in Michigan, grew up most of my life in North Carolina, went to college and met Chris my sophomore year and started dating.
And now Chris is my person. Side note.
And now Chris is your person, and we're still dating all these years later.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we've been married 19 years this June, which is wild. Yep. We got married in 2006. And so, of course, he is a huge part of my story. Like, so grateful for him and not just who he is to me, but like to our kids and to you and your kids. And what a gem. So we got married in 2006 and I moved to upstate New York, which is where we still live.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely love it. We live in the Adirondacks and just absolutely gorgeous where we live. Love it. But I think the bigger part of maybe the defining part of my story where you can look and see like there is this point, there is a before and after this moment, um, happened over the course, maybe leading up to 2010. It began around 2008 when mom and dad separated, which was a shock and kind of caught us, all off guard and by surprise. And then fast forward a couple years later in 2010, what a huge year for me. I had Maddox in July, um, and in December, dad took his life. And so just like the widest range of like complete joy and complete devastation, like mashing all up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that is definitely the year for me where um, I knew then that it changes a lot. And it doesn't just change that you lose your dad, it changes that you lose, a lot of memories that would have been made and a lot of times that you would share. And so it's the grief and the loss of a lot of different things. Um, and so that was definitely a challenging season. And took years truly to process. 2012, Liam was born, and then in 2014, Gracie girl. Um, and then this is us now here. Um, and my life looks like crazy, busy, in love, mama of 3. You can catch me at like cello or wrestling or gymnastics or football, probably any day of the week.
Yep.
Loving it all.
All the stuff and things.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Man, you're right. I mean, our stories are so interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Regardless of where we've been across the globe, physically, maybe separated at times, but so much of what you just said resonated because I thought specifically, sure, that time frame, 2008 to 2010, presents a lot of visual cues and reminders in my own experience with that story. But something for those that are listening that, and I've shared this with Jeanette before too, but something that just came to my mind, and this is just how it goes for me. That time frame, and maybe I'll drop a picture in here for those of you so you can see it. A picture of my dad with Jeanette's boy when they met, and it's I mean, you've seen pictures of my dad before, so it's he looks weathered and he looks different than he was, and that's disheartening at times to look at. But to see him with his first grandson, man, it's moving, and
It was beautiful for
it was
sure.
it was beautiful. What a gift that before whatever reasons he decided to end his own life. I think a lot of the verse when Maddox came into the picture, and Maddox is a special dude because he was the first grandchild. He was the first of the nieces or nephews amongst me and my two sisters. So the first the first new kid in the new line of
Hmm.
maybe Murano slash white blood to be born in. So much to unpack there too. But without diving into that so much, I really simply think practically, and I think I've shared this with you before, but it's probably been a while since I've talked with you specifically on this. In my mind, uh, the Bible verse came to life in a very unique way, where it says, "The Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." And when that season, Maddox is such a special dude in his own way, but to the
Hmm.
family, it was a gift that not only was he the gift of life in the form of a son to Jeanette and Chris, and as a nephew to like me and Micah, and as a grandson to Joe and Sandy, our parents, but also I'm a real big believer in the fact that like we don't even know what's on the horizon, and we can when we can appreciate gifts of love and life without knowing what tomorrow brings, but to appreciate it and really to invest in those things, we need that. We need that anchor
Hmm.
because then when things spin out of control, when things go opposite of what you ever thought they could have, man, what a gift that prepared us with some joy and laughter in some of our darkest times came.
Hope.
And Maddox, yeah, hope, faith, hope, and
Yeah.
love. Um, and it was a beautiful thing that filled joy and actually gave laughter because he was a chunky, wild ass little dude, and we needed
Truth.
that. We needed that crazy, like screaming, rebellious little kid that didn't want to do anything he was told, and watching him give Chris a run for his money. Like we needed
Man.
that crazy. We needed that crazy interaction that just almost brought us to tears, laughing over drinking whiskey in our darkest of times. And I think
But yes, like how
it
much
was
did he
so
just,
cool.
it was
Yeah.
so redeeming and so like
Yes.
it was, and he still is such a gift. Like when it's kind of wild as a parent to be caught like in the middle of this because,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you've experienced this too. Um, like growing up and seeing like all of the beautiful things that everyone else saw in dad and loved about dad, but like on so much of a deeper level, right? Because we saw it day in and day out in like all the little moments. And like, man, he was the real deal. And the joy that he brought everyone else, like 100-fold in our home. And just so many of like his beautiful attributes to see them like in Maddox and to see them in Liam and McKenna or
Yeah,
Leslie or Ari. Like it is so powerful and it's just incredibly humbling, like just to get to witness on both sides.
it is.
Um that
Yeah,
that it's not.
across all of our kiddos, like across all of
Hmm.
my dad's now grandkids, only one of whom was he able to meet. But there's this. I talked about this with Fred the other day about how when you step back and create space, when we were talking about creativity, when you create space for your children to be unique, the best parts of you, the ones that you hope to be passed on, are actually what you leave a thumbprint on a generational legacy. And
It does.
I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's something that I think it's not only faith based and maybe scriptural if you choose to believe that way, but even just as a human, there's nothing wrong with wanting to leave a good legacy, not for a prideful reason, but just you want to leave a good heritage and a good name behind you. A good name is what should be chosen over any
Hmm.
riches. So it's cool to watch that all of these things sort of trickled down into, of course, us, but then also into our children. But
Yeah.
I will say that there is a connecting file and a linkage there, which to honor both you and Micah, and I'd say even like me and Laura and all of our spouses, like it takes deliberate parenting and focus to make sure that that is passed on, because some of that might be imprinted genetically in DNA. There are some gifts that I think everyone receives that are natural just to them and how they were created, but it's also a deliberate focus of parenting to ensure that those things are encouraged, spoken into them, modeled into them. Yeah, and I remember something that you said about, it was really cool. This came to my mind as well when you're like, he was really good about making each one of us feel like, of course I'm his favorite. And I'm cool if the other one thinks that they're his favorite, because we can all probably be his favorite. But um he used to say this to me all the time. And he would look at me and he would say, "My son, my favorite son, my
My only son.
But he would also say to us a
Love
lot.
him.
Micah recalled this, I think, and she notes it a lot, that he would look at each of us and say, there's a special place in my heart that only you can fill."
Not anybody else in the whole world can fill it.
Yeah, and if you're a parent or if you're just some young kid trying to win over your boo thing, if you want to steal a line, you can steal that one from our pop, Joe Morano, because it's a good one. And you can say like, "Hey, there's something in my heart. That doesn't mean that I don't have equal amounts of love in other parts of my heart. But there's this
Yep.
part of my heart, and it's only
It's
yours.
yours. You got it.
God gave that just to you from me and to me from you, and we share it together." And
Right? But like what a gift
that's
as
such
a
a cool
kid
way to,
to like
what a good,
to know that like to your soul, to the core of you, that like you are special and there's something
mm,
that like the security and the confidence that that gave us, um just to be authentic with him. Like it was not conditional. It was I love you because you're my daughter. I love you. Like you can't, how many times did he say too, like there is nothing that you could ever do to make me love you any more or any less. And like people could say that, but like to actually live that out with your kids of all people who see you like at your best and at your absolute worst, and for them to believe that, like, man, that is like that is goals. That's where it should be.
it is. It's funny because I took so many ideas from him and made them my own. But I could do this right now with my kids next to me, and they would prove it true. I will look at them, and it's fun to be creative with it. To
Hmm.
segue from creativity into honesty, I think it's actually a really cool transition, because when you open space for creativity and unique identity in someone's life, I think it empowers and reinforces a more honest life and a more honest human when they feel free to be their actual identity and their actual selves that they were made to
Yeah.
be. When they feel that freedom and they're liberated and not felt to conform, but they're felt to
Hmm.
be creative and unique, then they can be honest. And it's just a really cool thing that I took some of his ideas. I was like, how do I want to make this my own though? So I look at them, and all the time, it just hit me one day. I was like, there's going to be a lot of things that confuse these awesome little girls, both now and in the future. And it's only going to get worse as life continues to compound as they get older. And I said, if they're ever caught curious about anything, or ever caught questioning things and just asking, like, what does this mean? What's going on? If they can't find any truth, and this might seem like Jeanette and I are going off on random tangents, but it's actually, I think you're going to find through this episode that it's
But we
all,
can do what we want.
well, first of all, you know what? You ain't got to be listening to this. Get stepping if you want to. We ain't caring.
Keep scrolling.
Or whatever it means. Scrolling, next episode, unsubscribe. Well, please don't do that. But I mean,
No, don't take
that's,
it that far.
well, let's back it up a second. But, you know what? Do what you want. You're a grown human being, probably. Uh, But I was like, all right. So dad did some really cool things that were meaningful that like when he said it, I knew what was coming. But even though I could telegraph his past, I still wanted him to say it to me because it was fun.
Yeah.
It was him. And I was like, I want to hear this though. Dude,
Yep.
it's sort of like cliche, but I love it. Say it again.
Yep.
Tell me I'm your favorite son. I'm your only son. Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
And I do it with the girls. It's like if they're confused or like, I don't know what to make of this, when those questions enter their mind, I want there to be some creative reminder that the first thing they think of is dad loves me. And
Hmm.
so it was almost like, I wouldn't say it was like waterboarding, but at the beginning it took a lot of repeating, like, no. And I told him, I was like, hey, whenever dad looks at you and says, guess what? Your only response is, you love me. And that's what you say back to me. And
No
they're
other
like,
answers.
yo, and I was like,
Shut down the creativity right now.
right. No, this is non-negotiable. There are no other correct answers. Like there is only one answer to this test. Because when they were younger, I'd say, guess what? And they're like, what, dad? I'm like, no, that's not the answer. Yeah. But it's
Guess
cute
what?
because
Oh,
they're like, no, what? What, dad? What are you talking
insert
about? And
creative story.
I'm like, no, you don't get freedom in this. Like,
Insert random facts about sharks from Leslie.
what about the dinosaurs, dad? No, dude, come on. But then finally, once they started smelling what I was stepping in, it's funny because now that that has become sort of like a staple of our fun little, and I can look at them across the room and I can just mouth it and just be like, and then Karina will do her little hand. She'll go, you love me, like across the room. Or even if it's like oh, you love me, but then it'll be followed with like a
Okay.
smile or a giggle. But I'm going to use that quick example because it was just cool. And it's just something that it reminded me of and it's fun. But that lines up so neatly into the next question of I think there are so many, and we've talked about this, so I know your mind and your heart on this because you're my sister. But I am very curious and eager to hear you unpack this next question for me. So, like, how do you frame or describe honesty? And I think the way we're leading into this might seem a little bit divergent, but yo, crooked sticks can draw straight lines. Go listen to some Lecrae. Got some good lyrics. That's a fact, Jack. You can go all over the place, but you might get a straight line out of it. And we're going straight to the heart of honesty. So, like, with all of this framing, opening conversation we've had, which is fun, the heart of it is honesty. And it's so, so invaluable.
Hmm.
It is everything. It really is. An honest person and an honest heart and an honest being. So like how does Jeanette frame and think of and describe that?
So, my one word would be truth. I think honesty is truth. And to frame it, um, there's there's a few different characteristics, and we can run through it like a list, or we can kind of take them one by one. Um, Literally like a frame.
Hit me with that
um,
1-2 punch. Let's get it first and then we'll see where we go
the
from there.
list first.
Yeah, give us a list. Let us have it.
Okay.
Don't hold back.
We have humility,
I dig it.
vulnerability, um, intuition, identity, and authenticity, grace, and courage.
So talk I love those. Talk to me about just in my mind's eye, I got a visual when you said you actually view them as a frame, but yeah, give me more of a description of how you tangibly and practically like think of those.
So I think one of the very first things that I thought of was humility. And man, honesty really, especially with yourself, um, is the foundation. And it's kind of the baseline. You can't expect to be honest and have authentic, meaningful relationships with other people if you don't first do the hard work of being honest with yourself and knowing yourself. Um, and that is just, man, wildly humbling. So I read a quote that says, the degree to which a person can grow is in direct proportion to the amount of truth that they can accept about themselves without running away. And
Hold on. Hold on. Read that one more again.
one more. The
That y'all need to
degree,
listen up. Hey, wake up, and listen to this lady. Go on again.
the degree to which a person can grow is in direct proportion to the amount of truth that they can accept about themselves without running away. And man, just in the hard work of actually knowing yourself, the very first step is being honest and um what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses and where do I need to grow? And I'm willing to lean into that rather than try to cover it up or rather than pose and pretend to be something that I'm not. Um, just humility and just seeing yourself in the context of a much larger picture. Not that what you are and who you are doesn't matter, but it definitely affects more than just you. So just the humility. So maybe that would be humility in relationship to how you are honest with yourself, but then also humility in how you relate with other people. Um, just how many times did dad tell us to, like, you can learn something from every single person that you come in contact with. And I remember being little, I don't remember which one of us being like, well, probably not that person because, and he was like, no, like they're still teaching you. Like some people will teach you how you want to be, and other people will teach you how you never want to be, but you're still learning in some respect from every single person. Um, But that also takes humility just to realize that there is always more to learn and there is always room to grow. And truly everyone you meet is teaching you something. Um, and in the same regard, you're teaching. Like what story are you telling and what are people learning from when they interact with you?
Yeah, it makes me think of so the way that tethers so nicely into the way that I just frame, even within our coaching model when I talk through clients, or I mean, you can go look at it on the site, but I really believe, and I've seen it a lot in just my experience, is that like real humility is when you individually or people within a team or a community or a group individually can look at themselves as students of each other's experience, thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
feelings, actions. So you actually approach every other human as your teacher in some capacity and not in a smug, arrogant, like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn from you what I don't want to do. But you just open ended actually approach it like, I have so much to learn from you today because of your
Mm-hmm.
walk in your life. And that doesn't mean you align in maybe morals or ethics or character, but you actually view them as someone who can teach you something new.
Yes.
And you don't get to hold the pen on what that lesson is today. They do.
Right. Like their own
Man, that
unique experience.
oh, and that causes you to enter into life and humanity in such a different posture. It's powerful.
It
And
is.
it causes you to be honest with who you are. It's a gut check. And it's a good
Mm-hmm.
thing.
It
Yes.
is.
I mean, of course, I'm biased to humility. I think it's the way we should start, act, and end generally and in life. But it's yeah. What else? What were so you said humility, and then I believe you said
Humility,
vulnerability and identity.
vulnerability. Um, so kind of two sides of the same coin here. Um, don't pretend to be someone that you're not. And also don't try to diminish yourself because in your opinion, you think it will make other people more comfortable. and this is something we've talked about in our home with the kids, with Maddox specifically. I think like what sparked the conversation was one of his sessions with you. And I loved that so much. And
Fun fact:
his
my nephew is humble enough that he was like, "Yo, Uncle Josh, I want you to coach me." And man,
man, what
I'm
a
not gonna lie,
gift, Josh.
I love all y'all, but there is well, I'll just say this: all of you have a special place in my heart, but none of y'all get more love than Maddox. That's a fact.
No,
So
none,
that dude's special.
none.
He's so cute.
Um, so he was like, we talked about the fact that the way that you can show other people the greatest respect is by giving the absolute best of yourself, not trying to scale it back. And that's just incredibly powerful. So that's vulnerability. Um,
Hmm.
the third trait or the third attribute is intuition. And I love this one maybe the most. It's up there. Maybe just my mama heart loves it so much. And I know that you do too. As a dad, like, man, kids are such a gift. And I think that Chris and I have this conversation a lot. Um, how kids aren't jaded or molded, or they don't have other people's ideas set in stone in their head. And because of that, man, they are so discerning and they are so intuitive and they are so incredibly just attuned with spirits and with the energy that someone brings into a space. Or um mean, they just read people so well, and I love that. And I learn so much from that. But just your intuition, being honest with yourself, like your body knows before you do a lot of times, and so honor that and listen to it. And um, just this concept that pay attention, and a lot of what you need to know is already right in front of you, and there's probably not any secrets, just things that you're turning a blind eye to that you may not want to see or acknowledge or accept. But intuition is it's a really big part of honesty.
Yeah, that's it's really interesting when you paint the picture of how kids are. I'll just use my own Josh terminology, like they're unimpregnated or unadulterated in their thoughts and in their perceptions
So
because they,
much.
first of all, they just haven't had the time to develop their own bias and blind spots. And they do approach things more earnestly and honestly, and
Mm-hmm.
they are less jaded. Part of that's developmental stuff. Part of that is just stuff that I actually am quite convinced that while it's difficult, parenting or mentoring or loving as an adult or as an older person with someone who's younger coming up behind you or a child, you can help them protect that honesty. You can also damage it really hard by trying
Mm-hmm.
to impression them with your own model. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying it is our job to pass on morals and give some sort of vector ethically to our children, but also like just making space, which ties so neatly to what we talked about in our last virtue with Micah, with creativity and unique nature of everyone, and making space for that, making space for others, putting boundaries to where you make space for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you can teach that to a kid, I actually am pretty confident that it's difficult, but they don't have to lose that. And
No,
as
they
an
don't. And
adult, you can find it again.
you
Um,
can. And I think that a lot of that, um, man, we are really intentional in our home. There is a quote by Emerson um, that says, trust your instinct to the end, though you can render no reason. And my kids can quote that to you because they have been told that and reaffirmed that so many times. Like, your body and your spirit are incredibly wise, and lean into that. And if something doesn't feel right, if someone doesn't feel right, you don't need to explain why. Like, we don't need qualifiers on this.
Right.
It just trust yourself. And I think that as parents, when you're intentional, um, just to speak that over them, but then to reaffirm, like, when they voice something or when they say, hey, this doesn't feel right, like, lean into that space and don't doubt it and don't second guess it. And just be quiet and watch and learn, because they're just not wrong. Like, it's kind of wild to see. But the kids have a really, man, just a really powerful grip on discerning things that sometimes we don't, or that we may not want to see, but
Mhm.
it's powerful.
That example you just gave, man, it resonated really deeply with, first of all, I could unpack a million own personal examples or what I've seen in my kids, but that's not the point. When you said, okay, to trust their instinct to the end, even if you can't give a reason for it.
Hmm.
And I just got this visual of one of your children, let's say good old Gracie, McKenna Grace, comes across someone who it from the outside, or maybe even as a parent, you don't know, and I'm sure these sorts of things have happened with you, where maybe you don't even know why they don't feel trusting, or you don't have the same instinct, or maybe spiritual discernment that even a child does. But they're just like, I don't like this, or it doesn't sit right, or the situation is funny. And to not question that or just be like, get over it, but to just appreciate the way that their heart feels on something, and to tell them that you don't have to explain it. I trust you, to give them that
Hmm.
bold confidence. That example tied so neatly to the last three, I guess, associated virtues that you mentioned. And I think it's a really good practical picture of these things that you mentioned: authenticity, grace, and courage. And those three things, when you think of that model of like a child sees something that you don't even see in someone, but trusting that they have the spirit of discernment to maybe see something you can't, and how you can encourage their own authenticity.
Hmm.
You can coach and develop them in how to communicate those things graciously, but honestly, and also to instill in them the courage to step boldly into what they feel and discern in those things and not hide it back. So like, I don't know, in that one example, you just like those came like a triple decker right off the top. So like those
Hmm.
last three things, you can take them individually or collectively, but I think that led really well into those. Like, how do you view those?
um Authenticity. Yes. Believing yourself enough to ask hard questions. And I listened to something the other day that it was in relationship to kids. Obviously, that is my world. Um, but this lady was talking about the fact that she doesn't view the most confident kids as the ones who thinks they have all the answers and have it all figured it out. She views confidence as the person who's willing to raise their hand and be like, hey, I don't get this, or this doesn't make sense to me, or I don't understand it. That's actually like trusting your own voice and listening to yourself enough to know, like, hey, if I have a question here, like, I'm okay with that. I'm going to be honest with it. I'm going to be transparent. If you have a question, probably somebody else has the same question. Like, we go over this with our kids, right? Like, don't be so proud that you can't be honest about what you don't know and where you need to grow and what you need to learn. Um, so I think authenticity is that, just being honest with yourself when you fall short, and if there's something that you're trying to accomplish or do and it doesn't turn out the way that you want it, like, don't hide from that. Don't shrink back from that. Use that. That's kind of a voice like saying, hey, this is where you should probably focus and pour a little bit more hard work or attention, or what do I need to change to get a different outcome? Um, and I think that that's like, it's powerful in how we speak to ourselves internally, like our internal dialogue. man, it just plays out so much. So to have the confidence to be like, hey, that didn't, like, I failed at that. Like, this, there was this weight in the gym and I wanted to do that and I wasn't able to. So what do I need to do to get there? Like, these are the steps I need to take, and use that to drive you, rather than using that to be like, hey, this is something I have to pretend I have all figured out, when nobody does, you know? So authenticity in that light, um, just the courage to be able to face where we need to grow.
Yeah. That weight analogy just popped really sharply in my mind because when I think of someone like Maddox or even like you or Chris, I would say arguably anybody in the White household specifically holds this character trait, and it's because you and your husband model it incredibly well and have been very deliberate to invest and nurture it in your kids. Much like you said, I mean, the things when you listen to your body's going to be honest with you and it's going to tell you the truth and it's going to highlight where you might believe one thing and it's going to show you differently really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even Chris Payne said that in our episode on vision, how hey, your body's not going to lie to you. You're really quickly
It
going to figure
doesn't.
it out. You're, you can push your body with your mind, but your body will also be a good balance to that and tell you
Mm-hmm.
the cold hard truth pretty quickly.
Yes.
Um, but when I think of someone who, let's say like a Maddox or even a Liam or McKenna, any of your kids that can step very confidently and boldly and speak graciously, but I think of them in almost the same capacity of like the same way that the body doesn't lie. You go to the gym and a weight doesn't lie. 20 kg is 20 kg. And it doesn't matter how you're feeling about it. It's offering the same level of resistance and it's offering the
Mm-hmm.
same challenge and it's offering the same cold hard facts that this is how much I weigh, and to move me you got to put this much into it or it ain't going anywhere. And there's something that even if that's a challenge, you wouldn't have much trust or much fondness of continuing to go back for any sort of fitness journey if like every time you showed up 20 kg felt different and it was a different weight. But it's like, yeah, you're not really honest with me, man. I thought I was lifting
Yeah.
20 kg and it's 2 today, but you were labeled as 20. So there's a sense of trust and authenticity even in a weight that sounds funny, but in my mind it's like an honest person is much like that,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have to like the way that my resistance feels to you right now. You don't have to like the message I'm sharing with you right now. You don't have to agree with me being 20 kg today, but I'll tell you what I'm not. I'm not 2 kg. I'm 20.
Right.
And you're
And when you come back tomorrow, I'll be the same.
and when you come back, I'm going to be the same.
Yeah.
And this can be easier or harder and it might not always be a walk in the park, but when you show up and pick me up or when you show up and engage with me, you are getting the same shape, the same form, the same me. I'm consistent. I'm honest. I'm me. And
Yeah.
that's not a perfect analogy, but that's just, I think it's a cool picture in my mind of like when I show up in y'all's family, man, that's why I love Chris so much. Chris is Chris. Dude, he's my bro.
Is Chris.
Man, you ain't getting no one like that dude.
Mm-mm.
And you can't because he is,
You
man,
especially.
no, I mean, especially us, that's for sure.
Who else is getting FaceTime smooches on walks today?
Man, yeah, that's
Nobody.
true. That's true. He said, "You better put that in the episode." Mwah, mwah.
He's
Me and
gonna
my
look
bro.
for it.
Mhm. Love you, Chris. That's just for
Yeah.
me. Yeah, but it's true. I think there's so much about what you're saying with authenticity and courage to show up, and I believe that's what people crave, even if it's not the weight that they want to feel right now. They might
Yeah.
not feel prepared to pick you up right now and everything you bring, but man, don't hold it back. You are
Right.
you are that 20 kg. You are what you say you are. Put the label on it and let it be a fact. Let it be honest.
Yes.
Bring that every day. And that's like when you said that with the weight piece, it just like it resonated. That's a really cool picture of just like be that reliable, honest person. Like
Mm-hmm.
be honest.
Yeah.
Be you.
It's just, it is. And it's just such an important facet. Like when you think about like just being you. And not, so honesty doesn't necessarily just mean saying saying the truth. Like, there are so many more aspects to it, but when you live honestly and you live authentically, and your body is not wrestling with what you're trying to project, like it is all in alignment. Um, so it just lays the groundwork. It kind of ties back into intuition, because then like when your body gives you a red flag, hey, I can trust this because I don't lie. And the flip side of that is if you're going around and pretending to be someone that you're not, or saying things that aren't true, even if they're small things that aren't true, right? Like, your body knows, and your body's keeping score. And then when you hit those big, like, hey, I need to know what to do here, like within myself, I'm like trying to determine how to proceed. You can't trust your own intuition, and you can't trust
Mm-mm.
your own spirit, because you haven't been honest with yourself, and you know that your body knows that. So
Yep.
just the gift that it is, even to yourself, in those bigger moments when you've been honest. And I love the story that you told about Aria. And man, like,
Mm.
we've done much the same with our kids. Like, I can't tell you the number of times where I'm like, hey, like, what's going on? Are you okay? Well, I'm fine. Well, if you're not fine, don't say you're fine. You can say, I don't want to talk about it right now. And I get that, because there's sometimes that, like, something bothers me and I'm not fine, but I also don't really want to go there right now. So it can be both, and that's okay. But don't say that it's yes if it's no.
Mm.
So even in the littlest things, they aren't really very little. You're just establishing pattern, and you're setting precedent within yourself that does play out in bigger things in life.
Right. And I think before we transition into this next question, this is good because I want everyone to hear this really quick. For some, this may be a repeat of something you've heard before. But when you look at who Christ was when he walked on this earth, and whether you choose to believe in him as your savior or you have a faith-based belief in him or not, he was a real human being who real friends of his wrote real historical accounts of. And one of those texts was written in scripture, defined him as a man who was full of grace and truth. And if you want to think of it as like a well-balanced set of wings, it was a perfect balance that he was full at capacity of both. And grace is another picture for love. So if you want to dumpster dive what is love, there's actually another passage that says love is, and it gives you quite a good list. Hits you with a 1-2 punch of patient and kind right out the gates, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I would offer, like, in these stories of like our children, when they bring us honesty things, and we want to encourage them to speak truth and be honest, and even the uncomfortable things with us as parents. And I know Jeanette's the same way, because her and Chris and I and my other sister and brother-in-law, Micah and Matt, we've talked about this a lot. It's how our parents were. In little children, I want to model and develop things that when they get older, it's natural, that they don't
Mm-hmm.
feel afraid. There is no fear-based or fear of judgment if you are honest with me, because you're a person and we are all imperfect. But I tell them, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, you better not lie to me. That's going to be crushed.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come to me with truth, I'm going to meet you full of grace. And I think in a family, when you can show them through your actions that honesty is always going to be met with the full capacity of love,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to judge you, that doesn't mean that there's not, if they did things wrong, there's not consequences for actions. This isn't some craziness that isn't reality. But when my daughters have done things that they've gotten in trouble for, but I said, I promise you, and you know this because you trust me because you've experienced it. It will be so much better for all of us and for you if you just tell me what's actually happening, and
Hmm.
I will be your biggest champion of getting through this together. Even if there are
Right.
consequences, I'll actually help bear those with you. And I do
Right.
at times. Like, that's a model of actually, I think, who Christ was, just as the man that walked this earth with others. So when people come to you with honesty, encourage that and reinforce that by meeting them full of grace and love
Right.
and letting them know that, like, man, it doesn't matter what you tell me. If it's actually honest, I've got nothing but love for you, my brother. I've got nothing but love for you, my sis. I'm so honored that you could be honest with me and that you trusted me. Let me love you. And it might hurt.
Yeah, man,
We're,
that's it.
we're going to walk through this. And that's like, that is such a
That's
powerful
it.
balance. I just love that picture.
Like just the gratitude that somebody feels safe with you to share. Like,
Right.
this is a struggle, or I did this and I messed up. Like that truly is like the end goal. That is a gift, especially as a parent, right? Like you want to be the
100.
person that they go to. You want to be, and man, you have to be like so intentional with that, literally even in like the smallest things, and you know, not reacting. Like sometimes you just have to bite your tongue. just just shh,
Mm.
and listen and hear the story and not respond, just listen to it. Like that is the really best thing that they need right then in that moment, not your opinion, not what could have, should have, whatever. Like just listen. And just providing that kind of environment where they know that they can say anything. Like you can tell me anything, literally anything, and we'll make it through it, and it's okay. And it may be like a really big thing, and it may be, I mean, like I was walking through the living room the other day and Maddox was on FaceTime with a couple of his dudes, and I hear like Maddox's mom, Maddox's mom, and they were like, we need you to answer a question. Okay. Who who is it that Maddox has a crush on? Because we know that you know. And I was like, man, I'm not telling you, but you're not wrong. And so like I love that, like just that just that sense that like you can be their person, and you can keep things safe that they need kept safe, and you can help them navigate. Like you don't have to do all of this alone, and
Yeah.
nobody should do it alone, right? Not
And
even me.
and parents, the power, I want parents and just friends, just people anywhere where you're in a relationship with someone else where it's meaningful. Parenting, I think, is the most beautiful example of it.
It
But
is.
like, what a paradigm flip if you could have other people where most people in culture say, like, oh, parents, you better be careful of what the friends know about your child. What if you had such a cool, honest,
Lip it.
loving environment in your home where all of your kids' friends are coming to you going like, yo, I need the inside scoop on your kid. Because I know they tell you everything. If anyone's honest, it's them with you. They won't even
Please
tell me
tell
shit.
us.
Like, you're the keeper of all the secrets. Like, and that's not that crazy of a thought. It just, it requires, like you
Man, you
said, it
just have to
requires
be
that parenting.
intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a lot of intention. And I mean, and it's not even just me. Like I know you have this with Maddox too, right? Like it's powerful. He won his wrestling award the other night, and we got home
Man,
and
when I got
like
that text, dude,
yours was the one that like I'm like, I know it's the middle of the night there, but he's not even gonna care.
I didn't. As soon as I saw it, I replied and I was like,
You
man, well
know.
done. I'm so proud of you. And that's
Right?
it's encouraging that it's we don't do it perfectly. There's a lot of room for our own growth.
Oh God, no.
We all the same grace that you meet with honesty, you got to give yourself grace in that journey of trying to be more
Yeah.
honest with yourself, but it's
Yep.
powerful. Man, this is good. I told y'all she's good. I told you. Come on. All right. Next. What has it looked like
Grace.
what has it looked like for you in situations that required tempered honesty, or maybe when telling the whole truth may not have been appropriate in the moment? What do you think about that?
Good question. Um, So a couple things came to mind with this. The first example, it's going to kind of lean a little bit back more towards what we talked about with intuition.
Hmm.
And this exact scenario has happened really a lot of times with my kids. And I think that there are some situations where they can sense like, hey, something's going on here. Um, and they're not wrong. And so I think the very best thing you can do is, or what has worked for us is just to reaffirm in that moment their discernment and their intuition and that instinct that something is off or something's not right. And sometimes it's just that, like, yeah, you're not wrong. Something is going on. Um, and there's more to the story that I just can't share with you right now. And that's as honest as I can be. And my kids have heard that from me a lot of times. Maybe it's something that like a friend is dealing with and they can sense like, hey, something's going on. But I can't get into that. And I am going to be gracious and guard that person's, what they've entrusted me with. But also at the same time, you don't want to look at your kids and be like, no, everything's fine. Like if it's not fine, don't say that it's fine.
Right.
um just acknowledge, yeah, like something is off, and yeah, there is something going on, you're right, and you did discern that, that's the truth. But I can't tell you that right now. um so I think like for them, it just allows them to create that space where they actually they acknowledge when they feel something, like to give voice to that in their own spirit, right? They're not shutting that down and just be like, oh, it's no big deal. Which is really important as you grow up and navigate relationships of your own, right? Just being honest about that. The other thing that kind of came to mind is that sometimes maybe we're in a situation where you may have honest input, feedback, like assumptions or takeaways from something. Um, but maybe you don't need to share that. Maybe that is for you right up here. Maybe it's for your own growth. Um, and there's a lot of things that may be honest, but they don't meet a few other qualifiers that we can talk about. So they probably don't need to come out of your mouth. Um, so is what I'm saying honest is a good start. But then in addition to that, like, is it necessary? Um, and is it kind? These are three that we hit in our home a lot. Like, you don't just say something just because it's the truth. There's a few more checkpoints you have to meet there. So is it necessary? Like, is it actually going to be beneficial? And
Hmm.
is the person that I'm saying it to, first of all, do they even want my opinion? Have they asked for it? Or am I just airing my own thoughts like I need to be heard? So, like, that's a big one. Is
Right.
it kind? And I think it all kind of comes back to, like, what have you invested up until this point in this person, in this situation, in who they are or who they are becoming? Like, you don't really just need to go around sharing your opinion on everything. Have I poured in time and heart and soul and energy and invested more than just my opinion?
Yeah, that's. I
Like,
think
do I need to have a
you,
voice here?
yeah, you hit that from two very different and very impactful angles. I think of just, especially that last piece on framing really the discernment on honesty and truth is so much more than spoken word, but appreciating that the spoken word and the tongue is so powerful that
It is.
how is this necessary, and how is it beneficial and uplifting or constructive for the situation and for that person? Absolutely. Like, what have you done to earn that voice being heard in that space through a
Mm-hmm.
relationship and through investing.
Right.
What investment have you put in the bank that allows you to make a withdrawal of your voice entering this space today? Mm,
It's big.
and do they even want it? Do they even care to hear you flapping your gums right now? Maybe not. And if they do, they might tell you. So maybe be quick to listen, slow to speak. Might save you a
Yes.
lot of heartache, and it might, yeah. And so here's the way that our dad said it to me. And I'm sure you've heard this, and I'm sure it didn't originate with him, but he used to say it to me all the time. And he would say, "Hey man, you better always speak the truth. You better not think that means that you always need to speak all truth all the time." And again, there is such a cool model, and it's not about being mysterious or like, oh, I'm not going to be honest. You got to find out layers to me. It's just being discerning of like, if I choose to speak, it better be honest and it better be
Mm-hmm.
truth, not my subjective. This is my truth. I don't know how well any of us know ourselves, so be careful with
Right.
that one. But if you're being honest with something, speak honestly. But if you know more, yeah, what good does that do in certain situations to just say all the things you know in a certain space? So that takes
Mm-hmm.
maturity and wisdom and discernment uh, and
An
relationships.
investment.
Yeah, it's
Investment in relationships, right?
investment. And I think the more invested in a meaningful relationship, you'll realize that all those things don't need to be said. And
Mm-mm.
and
The less you say.
and let me put on the coaching hat, maybe my coaching snapback for a second. If you really care about someone's success and growth, and from a learning and development standpoint and framework, and I'm not even going to get into like the theory of why, there's a lot of research, and I'm not trying to tip into that side with this conversation, but it's proven, and it's just common sense. If I want someone to learn something well, and I'm in a trusted position to help navigate a space with and for that someone, honestly, the one who controls a conversation is the one who can ask the most powerful questions. So if there
Mm-hmm.
is something that another person may not yet see, and I can see it clear as day, it is so much more helpful to ask questions, not to be, leading questions, but to just ask honest questions and listen, which you actually can learn from and strengthen a
Mm-hmm.
relationship from, because it's in those questions that are helping navigate. You're also deepening a trusting relationship because you're caring about them to hear their story. But if you ask good questions and then they land on the truth for themselves, someone who discovers and learns something themselves, it sits different and it's stickier learning than when you just tell them
Mm-hmm.
a fact and you're just like, thanks for being another thesaurus or dictionary or textbook. But when
Right.
they mentally have to think through a question and answer it, and then they light bulb it for themselves, it sticks. So
It does.
the best way to share honesty is thoughtfully engaging in questions to hear their story and caring about them to where you give them space to learn it themselves. And that can go with a parent trying to impart faith into their child. It better be their own, because when life hits them in the teeth, you can't always fight for them. And when they're out of
Mm-hmm.
your house, you better hope it's theirs and not yours, because they need it to be theirs. So this can
Mm-hmm.
apply in so many relationships where it's just like, even if you can speak the
Yeah.
truth, it's more beautiful when they can come into that knowledge themselves.
Yeah.
And that takes more thought, it takes more intention, it takes more patience, and it takes more love than a simple fact.
It takes a lot more just living it out in front of them. I think that,
Yep.
man, so much more than your words, like how you live.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This leads so nicely into the next one. It's somewhat similar, but it's a little bit different of a question. So what are some of the best ways that you've found to give constructive feedback or criticism to someone?
Um, so facts are your friends and clear is kind. I think that's pretty,
Hmm.
not anything groundbreaking there, but I think just in giving feedback to, like, man, you remember so much more how people made you feel than the actual words, like verbatim, that they said. So just approaching feedback with a spirit of humility and love, um, and just care for that person. Like, it should not be about you.
Hmm. That's really good.
Yeah.
Say that one more time. What you said. Facts to your friends and what?
Clear is kind.
Just be concise and precise. Don't hold punches, but don't go overboard, man.
Man, I mean, especially if, yeah, if what you're giving is going to be difficult, like you throwing in a bunch of words and opinions, and
Hmm.
it's not helpful.
Yeah. And again, that has to come on the heels of an investment in a relationship for that to stick.
Hmm.
No one wants to hear critique from some chump off the street. That's for sure. Oh,
True.
just another voice, man. Just more noise. All right.
Mhm.
So this comes from oh my gosh. I gotta, you know what? Let's be honest. I'm gonna read this. This is hilarious. So our middle sister, I'm gonna throw a little bit of this text thread up. It was hilarious. Because
Why?
not the whole thing. I'm just gonna show a picture because so our middle sister Micah loves, absolutely loves, and this isn't a promotion for any celebrity or famous person, but she loves to reference and send clips from Zach Galifianakis, Between Two Ferns, so where he does interviews. He just asks preposterous questions. So she has a good question, but she was like, I guess if you choose to use mine or not.
I
And I,
guess.
and I was like, yo, you already got your episode last week. Like, quit trying to steal the limelight and butt in to show
Greedy.
like, oh, here's little middle sister, like I'm still in the game. So she's out of control. We love her so much. But and then she messaged me today. She goes, "Hey, don't forget about me." But man, Micah's just Micah. You go watch her creativity episode. She's a maniac.
Adore her.
She's fantastic. But
Hmm.
jokes aside, I mean, she comes with some thought, and this question is
Hmm.
gold. So all jest to the side, maybe we'll hold a little bit still in reserve. But from Micah, from the middle, from the one between two ferns, um, a real live female version of Zach Galifianakis, I'm sure. She asks, so we know that living a life of honesty goes beyond just not lying. So in this context, what thoughts or stories can you share to explore the relationship between acceptance or offering no fear of judgment and honesty?
So good. Um, so some of this we've hit on, and that this is one of the ways that we can encourage authenticity in our relationships is just by being present. And that sounds so simple, but man, to be present and to listen when people talk, to listen, to understand. I talk with my kids a lot about this, right? Listening to understand over listening to respond. And wow, like that's two totally different things. And to listen, to truly understand someone, um, I think just gives them space to be and to say what is on their heart, what is on their mind, struggle, good, bad, whatever it is. Um, and so to create that space for someone, man, you really just have to listen. And I know, like, that I'm not sure how I came to that with tying into honesty, but like, you truly have to listen, and you truly have to um just care and be invested in that person at that moment. Like, be present, be there. And I think this is one of the things, man, that dad, he modeled this so well. Like, to sit in his presence, there was not anything else going on. There was nothing more important. It didn't matter. Like, it did not matter how big or how small, whatever it is that you were talking about is all that existed at that time. And so just trying to live that out, with, well, in my case, like with my kids and with parenting, being present, like maybe what they're saying to you at 2 years old or 3 years old isn't like earth shattering, but to them it is. And so, man, I've been intentional about this for as long as I've had kids, just to really be present and really connect with them and let them know that like what they're saying matters to me. Because like, yeah, today it's like you're two and we're talking about your favorite color of car or whatever. But now, like, Maddox is 14, and the conversations that I have with him, Josh, and I know that you know of all people because you have them, like just the gift of him actually being open and honest and truly him,
Mm.
um without trying to say what he thinks I want to hear. Like, he's just him.
Right.
And that is such a gift, but it doesn't happen on accident. Like, it takes a lot of really being intentional in and listening, just so I think that's one really big part of it. um and honesty requires, truthfully, like just a lot of courage. And we didn't really hit on this one yet, but there's like Jordan Peterson, I love, says there is, taking the easy way out, or there's telling the truth. And these two things, they're not just different choices. It's not like, oh, I choose to do this and you choose to do that. Um, they're literally different pathways through life. And they're different ways of existing. And so just developing in your relationships, man, I have a couple like really close friends, and I know that I can literally say anything, like anything to them. And that doesn't happen on accident. It happens by, you know, cultivating those relationships and me being honest, and also them showing up and being honest with me when I need like a check. This is not right. This isn't like, so it goes both ways. And I think that it's reciprocal. And if you want that in relationships, you have to be that in relationships. Um, so honesty, just, it requires vulnerability. And so go first in that, like lead in that. And it's amazing. And it's such a gift when that comes back in a relationship. Um, yeah. What do you think?
Mm. First of all, I think that was fantastic. So great question from Middle Sis and great answer from the OG, the original Morano Kid Gangster. Um, I Not to bring the tone or mood down, but in the vein of honesty, and when I start sharing this, you're going to know exactly where I'm going with it. I think that as a man and as my father's only son, it's a good time to share probably something, well, something I've never shared definitely on this platform, but something I need to share with people. And for this one, um, I'm going to come for the heart of you men real quick, specifically you dads. But if you're a man out there, I need your ear. And I need you to hear me on this and to listen because I 100% agree and align with what Jeanette said about our dad being so present. And man, he was just there. And you had no one's undivided attention like you would have my dad's all the time. And I've talked about this before. He would turn off power tools, set him down, take off his protective equipment, get down on my level, look me in the eyes for the simplest, silly things, but to really connect. So he was very thoughtful and very loving. But Jeanette said something towards the beginning of the episode, which was reframing what her son had talked to her about this, Maddox, about, oh, to be honest with others, you need to be honest with yourself. And I want to walk this back a second, because if we choose to believe, and I do, that the most pure form of honesty is perfectly balanced with a heart full of love and grace. And it starts inside before it can flow out. And I'm not saying that my father didn't have love for himself. But when people's wells run dry, you need to refill them. You need to encourage. And I won't assume. I will just hit you with facts. And I will be clear. And I will be kind. But I will be honest. I firmly believe that a lot of what led to my father's struggles and grief and trauma that led him to the point, for whatever reason, and I won't assume why, he just felt like he couldn't cope and live with it anymore. It was because there were those around him who should have gone to his support and to love him. And man, let me be blunt. Let me come for the jugular on this one. I'm talking his pastor, who would not visit my father after having an affair on my mother. And he said, he knows what he did is wrong. He knows it's sin. He knows where we are if he wants to come and be repentant. With a man who's struggling in life, with a man who's beside himself for feeling like he's failed beyond anything that could be repaired. And then you're a man who's supposed to model faith. And this isn't a shot at a pastor. I'm saying this carefully, but I'm being blunt and honest because y'all need to hear this. If you're in a position where you are there to love and shepherd and help and be honest and not overlook things that are wrong, but to actually just be a human that cares about other people in tough times, who are you to take such an arrogant stance that's lacking all the humility that you just heard Jeanette unpack beautifully? That honesty's got to be layered with humility and grace and love and compassion and relationship and investment. And when people need you the most, when they are at their lowest, if you can't roll up your sleeves and go into the muck and the mud with them and walk with them and sit with them and cry with them and tarry with them a minute and burden with them and feel the weight of their weight, man, what are you doing? And so I think Joe, my dad, he couldn't be really honest with himself because as a man, he was in this environment and in this culture of other men that acted like, man, you're strong when you're just strong. Our strength is our strength. Nothing penetrates us. And then when life actually penetrated through that facade and hit him in the heart, and he was like, man, I messed up. There was there was nobody around him. All these strong warrior brothers, where were they at? They weren't there. They weren't there. And I'm not saying there was no one that loved or cared for him, but people who actually could have stepped into that void and loved and walked with this man. Who knows what that could have looked like? And I won't make assumptions. I won't do that. But I am going to hit you with some facts. And I am going to hit you with some clarity. And I'm telling you as a man, you need to get off your ass and quit being lazy and quit being selfish and quit being judgmental. Make space for messy mistakes in your children, in your family, and most importantly, in yourself. Because if you can't learn to love yourself, and this is actually the heart of the first and the greatest commandment in Scripture. It says, love your neighbor. How? As yourself. So the first is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. And the second is like to this, to love your neighbor as yourself. So the most honest man is the one that actually can conceptualize and grapple with and embody that commandment.
Mm-hmm.
Only can I love other people when I really get to know my own heart and to love my own heart the way that my creator loves me. And how did your creator love you, men? He sent his only son. I can speak as an only son. That's a tough thing to be without that dad father connection. He separated himself from the father, or actually the other way around. And he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? As he's dying for all the messy stuff that you were going to do. And that's such a beautiful picture of love that entered into the darkest human condition and full of grace, full of truth, full of accountability. But
Mm-hmm.
he carried that burden for that guy. And that is the model of Christ, not this hammer of Thor that's going to crush your head when you do the unthinkable because you should be perfect now. And I'm talking to Christian men. You think, oh, now I'm saved. And so, like, I'm never going to mess up and sin. And then when you do, oh, who am I? And there's all this fear and this doubt. And that's not it. I'm telling you, that's not it. That's not the God that loves you. And so, if you're in that environment, if you're in that culture, I'm lovingly telling you, you need to find a different clan to roll with because I've
Leave.
seen leave it. Like,
Leave.
get out of there, man. And I mean that like from the bottom of my heart because it's so painful to think of how that was so damaging to my father. And I'm not saying that's the only reason, but that played a heavy stake in the game that he could not forgive himself and love himself on the back end of a terrible choice because that was the culture he was raised in. And you need to break
Yeah.
those bonds. You need to break those bonds, man. So as a man, I'm telling you, I have made mistakes in my life and people loved me through it. And I'm here today because of it.
Mhm.
So
It's so true. And
love your own heart well, man. And thanks for giving me that space and for asking because it's just in honesty, like these are honest conversations that we've got to have. And this isn't a show, man. I lost my only dad and he took his life with a gun. Like this is messy and nasty, but it would have been so much easier for someone to step into that gap with him and just love him well.
so a couple things that came to mind when you went there. Um
Please. Yeah. I would
the
love to hear your
first one,
perspective on it.
well, the first one is just how um how intentional it's made me with my kids. Um that like there's no topic that's off limits. Like
No?
nothing. Literally nothing. But also like just, and it's been more Maddox up until this point because Maddox is a little older. Um, but it starts when they're younger. I think with Maddox, just like the next step is happening. So like Maddox, um, just doing the hard work of really knowing yourself. And I think as a parent, you can facilitate that probably a lot of different ways. What we have done is just to try to be really intentional um, with the people in his life and the people that have a voice, um, you know, like in a really direct way. Josh, you, like you, outside of myself and Chris, are probably the loudest, like you have the loudest voice and the biggest platform, but that's with so much intention and
Mm-hmm.
literally just be intentional, man. Like when your son is 14, like he doesn't need every voice on the internet in his head. He probably doesn't need the internet at all. Like I think that Maddox is maybe the only 14-year-old that I know that is not on social media. We're good with it.
Mm-hmm.
um but again, that's really intentional because there's just so many voices competing for space in kids' heads, right? And really what we want to cultivate at 14 is a really good understanding of who he is and what matters, and establishing what his values are and how that impacts choices that he makes. And so, like, we talk about that a lot, but then, shameless plug for you, like, Maddox talks with Josh weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, and like they tackle hard questions. And God, like, as a man, like, he's not a full grown man, but he is a man. Like, as a man, having the capacity to sit with hard
Sometimes he might as
questions,
well be in my mind. That dude's,
right? But like,
yeah.
just developing that muscle of truly sitting with yourself. I'm going to read something that this made me think of. From this, you'll recognize. Um, but it's on solitude, and it says, create time alone with yourself. When seeking wisdom and clarity of your own mind, silence is a helpful tool. The voice of our spirit is gentle, and it cannot be heard when it has to compete with others. Just as it is impossible to see your reflection in troubled water, so too is it with the soul. In silence, we can sense eternity sleeping inside of us. And I think just so much is to be said for just creating that space, um, just for self reflection and self growth and identity before you tackle anything with anyone else. Like, it starts in here, right?
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And I think knowing yourself is, I'm just going to share this thought because I think there's also these misnomers which connects. I mean, my father was very happy to express emotions, and it's not like I didn't see my father cry. Like, he shared his heart, he shared his love.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
The most sentimental person in
yeah, yeah,
existence.
he really was. And it's funny because my two oldest girls were talking the other day, and I shared this in one of the posts in text form, but like my middle one, Alessia, came up to me and she like grabbed my hands and she's just really loving and affectionate. But then she started feeling, she's like, "Oh, Dad, you got calluses all over." And she's like, basically was like, "Dad," she's feeling like the calluses on my hand. Like, "What are these? Are these okay?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just from working out and picking things up. I don't wear gloves. I just grab things with my hands." She goes, "Oh, Dad, I can tell you're really strong and you work hard to love and protect us."
Love her.
Um, and I was like, "Oh, thanks, sweet. I really do." And she was like, "Yeah, like your body's really strong. You really don't get hurt." I said, "Oh, that's not true." And then Arya steps in and goes, "Well, but Daddy doesn't cry when he hurts his body because he is tough. But the only time I see him cry is like when his heart is really happy or really sad." And I was just like, dude, so observant, but it just that resonated. That
How beautiful, though, to
I
model
was
that for them.
I was actually like, I'm cool with that. That's the way you view it because that's
Yeah.
I want you to go like, my dad's not going to whine or cry about like, oh, I hurt my physical body, but like the matters of the heart are what move me.
Hmm.
And I want them to see that those are the things that really move my soul and
Right.
really move my innermost being. Isn't these external things that I can't influence, but it's the things that really shape and shake you. And I was just like, man, a 6 and an 8 year old, like so perfectly packaged, the things that I hope they take away. And I think as a man, as a human, but especially men, I think a lot of times we try to, not wrongfully so, but we try to just model ourselves as the provider and the protector. And we rob ourselves, or much like you said at the beginning, we try to tone ourselves back and we aren't honest with our truest self of who we were made to be and who we should be living into by, oh, these are the things we are. I'm tough, I provide, I protect. And then it's the woman's job. And I would offer you this. Every virtue and every characteristic and trait is agnostic of sex or gender. Like we as humans, we're given the full capacity for all of the fields and all of the virtues and all of the human characteristics because we were made in the image of God. And so when he models these things beautifully, don't limit yourself into, well, I am just this. I think you should really
Hmm.
try. You're given different portions and different giftings, but I think you should really try and develop the full spectrum of just the beautiful gifts that you have by nature of being a human made in his image.
Right.
So don't just
Yeah.
provide and protect, love, care, nurture. It should offend you if you're a loving father that people think that your wife is the only one who can nurture and love the heart. Of course she can, and my wife is good at it, and she can do it in a different way. And there are differences in men and women. I believe that. But that doesn't mean that you two can't do that and that you two can't
Right.
grow in that in your own way. So don't limit yourself and don't be dishonest with your truest created being by just, oh, I'm just this. I'm just this macho tough dude. Like, no, man, it's okay for your
Right.
little girl to see you cry over things that really move
It's,
you.
well, more than okay, it's necessary.
It's necessary and it's free.
Necessary.
It's freeing for her or for
Hmm.
him, your boy, to see that. And I didn't say you're sniveling over everything and that you're an emotional wreck, but self control, again, it doesn't mean that I control and shut down. It means that I control the throttle of when this is appropriate. So when we talk about speaking truth at the appropriate time, sometimes that is spoken through behaviors and through
Hmm.
emotions.
Yo, big one right there. Like that's a yes, behavior is a language.
It is. So
Huge.
if you weren't supposed to do it, why do you have the ability to do it physically? If you're not supposed to cry, why do you
Right.
cry? Get out of here with your stupid assumptions. You can do it and it's okay in the right setting. So like you
Hmm.
provide such a liberating freedom to those around you when you do come with strength and poise and character. The heart of that is full of love and full of emotion and full of
Right.
passion and full of compassion. And I think having young girls, it's really just taught me so much about being a strong man. It really
Hmm.
has, because it's beautiful to hear those things said back to me and go like, man, they just read back to me a script that like I'm cool with that. That's awesome. So, and I know a lot of men agree, but for those of you who are trying to be tough or live in this false image, or maybe young men and you're going through puberty or
Nah,
you're hitting this boost of testosterone and you think this is what it's about. Yo, I don't need to read my resume to you. For almost a quarter century, I've been a U.S. Marine and I've been deployed to combat and I'm an infantry officer. And you would look at my rap sheet and be like, oh, what's this guy going on? I got a lot of tattoos. I love them. They're awesome. They actually hurt. I'm not going to lie.
they're pretty good.
They're pretty dope. Ingvo Picker is a fantastic artist. And
Pretty good.
there's my plug for Ingvo. Go check them. But I mean, there's things about you. You don't have to hide things that you like. You don't have to strip your masculinity away. No,
No.
that is who you are. But that doesn't
Hmm.
mean that you're just this macho false bravado. And
Truth.
I think that honesty in living a life I've lived in a very alpha dominated society of like combat arms Marines.
Yeah,
Man, some of the best ones I know are some of the most loving dudes. John Epps, we did an
that's the
episode on
truth.
love. Like the strongest men I know, they have the biggest hearts
The biggest hearts.
for
Yeah.
all other people. Like everything they do
Yes.
is from a posture of love. Um,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
these,
And how
yeah,
powerful, like, as a man, as a dad, as a husband, to lead your home in that way, right? Like, you cannot duplicate the confidence and the security and the love that you just pour in bucketfuls on your family when you lead that way.
right.
It's powerful.
It really is.
Hmm.
So, man, this has been so good. As we
Yeah.
start winding this down, my last question for you, and I want to turn it over to you to sort of close us out, and then I'll sign us off. But if you were to walk away from this and be like, man, I wish Josh or someone would have asked me this question, or if there's just any sort of hanging takeaways you really want to drive home or any last thoughts, what would those be? What would your responses be that you want to leave people with on this idea of honesty?
So this quote on honesty is, it says, a dishonest tongue and a dishonest mind waste time and therefore waste our lives. We are here to grow, and the truth is the water, the light, and the soil from which we rise. The armor of falsehood is subtly wrought out of the darkness and hides us not only from others, but from our own soul. So, honesty is vulnerability, and we should go first.
Absolutely. Man, that's so good. For my wife and my three daughters, so Laura, Aria, Alessia, Karina, this is always for you. And of course, you know your sis or Aunt Jeanette, but
Love you
it's,
guys. Man, I miss you.
oh my goodness, we love you so much too. But the heart of what these episodes are for, to keep them honest and to keep them pure and true to form and true to myself. You all are the lens through which I focus and through which these conversations are crafted and where this heart comes from. And it just keeps it true to form. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of these conversations. We hope it's useful, but it's for you. Because, man, I'm your
Mm-hmm.
dad. It's such a joy to host you. Love you so much. Thank you for
Love
doing
you.
this. And to all of you, so glad you could join us as we tee up and get ready to apply this next week. I hope you take some time to reflect on these things, dig in. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. And on Monday, get ready because my boy Fred and I are taking honesty. Good.
Oh, don't miss
Love you.
Fred.
Have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my reflections and stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.